I remember coming here before I moved to Chicago, and I think coming from Europe, coming from Italy, it's a very different beast. Usually a museum will only have things from like 1 or 2 centuries. There's not really any encyclopedic museums. This is like the Louvre, it has like everything. I can't really think of any Italian museums like that. So it was really overwhelming. And I think I was angry that they had Italian work. I felt like they stole it. I'm happy that people can see them, but it made me think a lot about the life of the work. It's a long travel to Chicago, you know? That whole process is completely opaque. We don't know how it got here. We just accept that it's here. The artist that I chose, she has these little characters, you know, and they have these lives. And I try to imagine if the characters came free in the museum, like what they would do or say. The things that I want them to say, it's also what I want to ask the museum. I feel like I have a lot of questions for the museum. I'm gonna bring this though. Ta-da. I want to take a picture of the little figure. So maybe we can draw it. I remember seeing Nancy Spiro's work. It blew my mind. At the time I was in school for painting and I was working on paper, and everybody I was talking to was like, you can't work on paper. It's not serious. I saw her work and it was so different than anything I'd seen. It was so vulnerable and it was so not precious and delicate, but also very powerful. She was doing things with art that other people seem to shy away from, talking about personal things or talking about relationships or femininity in a way that, especially in 1970, seems like you would have not landed you in a place where people thought of you seriously. When I saw the work, it's like she was giving me permission to do things that were vulnerable and maybe even ugly. And the scale of it too. I feel like one of the jokes in art school is that make it big, make it red, and it will be good. And she was just making small little things. The museum cannot take away its vulnerability no matter how hard they try, like the glass and the frame and the mat board and everything. And that there's no way to testosterone it up or to make it stronger, but in its vulnerability it feels really strong. That's very satisfying. Well, I wanted us to make some friends for our little friend here, and maybe have them have speech bubbles, and we can make them say things that we want to ask the museum. Because a lot of her work is really political. During the Vietnam War, she was drawing the helicopters like this, and then pasting them around and doing the little figurines. She made them go to war. But since we are in the museum, maybe we can use the figurines to ask the museum questions. So I have some questions for the museums. Maybe you do too. So maybe we can get some help from them to ask some questions to the museum, and we can put them wherever we want. I wrote down some questions when I was visiting last time. Where does this artwork come from? Like, what is the trajectory? Like, what is the journey? Because that's not really anywhere in the information, you know? Another thing I noticed is that the Islamic art is in the basement. Why is the Islamic art in the basement? How many artists that are not white are in the museum? And how many artists that are not male? What is the demographic of the museum goers? Because when I came, it seemed like maybe 90% of the people here were white. Chicago is like, 66% not white. What is the museum not doing or doing that is discouraging people from coming? Nancy Spiro, she's freeing herself of the idea that art has to be beautiful. That can be such a cage, like the beauty thing. Especially as a woman, that's a very freeing thing, to just not worry about beauty. I also think of this as a little gift to Nancy Spiro. I think she would have enjoyed it for her little people to come alive and go around the museum asking questions. I mean, she was very outspoken against the war, but she was also very aware of the gender dynamics of the art world. How many artists in the Art Institute are people of color? How many people in the Art Institute are women? The answer interests me, but the question interests me more. Like, just for people to think about it. The only one that I know I wanted to go somewhere specific is the one about the Islamic art being in the basement. The other ones can go anywhere. Anywhere that people can see them, even though I think that they're gonna get taken down. But that's okay. If you walk around the museum, you look at paintings and drawings, or any representation of humans, how many of those people are white? So many pieces. There you go. The museum is like whole one beast. This is a good spot. It gets a wall all for itself. I feel like I had seen this painting in high school. When I came to the museum and I found that it was here, I was So happy to find it. It's like finding an old friend, you know? It's like you know the image and it has this effect on you, and then you see the real thing and it's like such a nice surprise. Also, it's about witches. It's very strange. As like a 15-year-old, I was like, the creatures are really cool. But then at the same time, you know, it's like she's very, very powerful in here. Like everybody is beholden to her power. She's not the Madonna. I feel like really, if it's not the mother of Jesus, usually there's not that many women in art, especially in the 1600s. So the fact that it was like this other woman and she was powerful was very exciting. She's just riding her goat, holding her broom. But this was the same thing though. When I saw it, I was like, how did it get here? Like, how did it get to Chicago? It says George Porter Collection. That man bought it and then gave it to the museum probably. So yeah, this says, I renounce sex pretty much until it's permitted by God. And then this says, what a sweet thing sex is. She's messing with our heads a little bit. Or maybe she was not sure how she felt about it. I hope that I paid homage to this work and to her practice in a way that does it justice.